Joseph Roth, born Moses Joseph Roth, was an Austrian-Jewish journalist and novelist best known for his family saga Radetzky March, about the decline and fall of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, his novel of Jewish life, Job, and his seminal essay, Juden of Wanderschaft, a fragmented account of the Jewish migrations from Eastern to Western Europe in the aftermath of World War I and the Russian Revolution. In the 21st century, publications in English of Radetzky March and of collections of his journalism from Berlin and Paris created a revival of interest in Roth. Habsburg Empire. Born into a Jewish family, Roth was born and grew up in Brody, a small town near Lemberg in East Galicia, in the easternmost reaches of what was then the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Jewish culture played an important role in the life of the town, which had a large Jewish population. Roth grew up with his mother and her relatives. He never saw his father, who had disappeared before he was born. After secondary school, Joseph Roth moved to Lemberg to begin his university studies in 1913, before transferring to the University of Vienna in 1914 to study philosophy and German literature. In 1916, Roth broke off his university studies and volunteered to serve in the Imperial Habsburg Army fighting on the Eastern Front, though possibly only as an army journalist or censor. Quote, "This experience had a major and long-lasting influence on his life. So, too, did the collapse in 1918 of the Habsburg Empire, which marked the beginning of a pronounced sense of homelessness that was to feature regularly in his work." As he wrote, "My strongest experience was the war and the destruction of my fatherland, the only one I ever had, the dual monarchy of Austria-Hungary, Germany." In 1918, Roth returned to Vienna and began writing for left-wing newspapers, signing articles published by Vorwärts as Der Rote Joseph. In 1920 he moved to Berlin, where he worked as a successful journalist for the Neue Berliner Zeitung and, from 1921, for the Berliner Börsenkurier. In 1923 he began his association with the liberal Frankfurter Zeitung, traveling widely throughout Europe, and reporting from the south of France, the USSR, Albania, Poland, Italy, and Germany. According to his main English translator, Michael Hoffman, he was one of the most distinguished and best-paid journalists of the period, being paid at the dream rate of 1 Deutschmark per line. Quote, "In 1925 he spent a period working in France. He never again resided permanently in Berlin." Marriage and family. Roth married Friederike Reichler in 1922. In the late 1920s, his wife became schizophrenic, which threw Roth into a deep crisis, both emotionally and financially. She lived for years in a sanatorium and was later murdered by the Nazis. Novels. In 1923, Roth's first novel, The Spider's Web, was serialized in an Austrian newspaper. He went on to achieve moderate success as a novelist with a series of books exploring life in post-war Europe, but only upon publication of Job and Radetzky March did he achieve acclaim for his fiction rather than his journalism. From 1930, Roth's fiction became less concerned with contemporary society, with which he had become increasingly disillusioned, and began to evoke a melancholic nostalgia for life in Imperial Central Europe before 1914. He often portrayed the fate of homeless wanderers, looking for a place to live, in particular Jews and former citizens of the old Austria-Hungary, who, with the downfall of the monarchy, had lost their only possible heimat. In his later works, Roth appeared to wish that the monarchy could be restored. His longing for a more tolerant past may be partly explained as a reaction against the nationalism of the time, which culminated in Nazi Nazism. The novel Radetzky March and the story The Bust of the Emperor are typical of this late phase. In another novel, The Emperor's Tomb, Roth describes the fate of a cousin of the hero of Radetzky March up to Germany's annexation of Austria in 1938. Of his works dealing with Judaism, the novel Job is perhaps the best known. Paris. Being a prominent liberal Jewish journalist, Roth left Germany when Adolf Hitler became Reich Chancellor on January 30, 1933. He spent most of the next 6 years in Paris, a city he loved. His essays written in France display a delight in the city and its culture. Shortly after Hitler's rise to power, in February 1933, Roth wrote in a prophetic letter to his friend, the Austrian writer Stefan Zweig, "You will have realized by now that we are drifting towards great catastrophes. Apart from the private, our literary and financial existence is destroyed. It all leads to a new war. I won't bet a penny on our lives. They have succeeded in establishing a reign of barbarity. Do not fool yourself. Hell reigns." From 1936 to 1938, Roth had a romantic relationship with Irmgard Kuhn. They worked together, traveling to various cities such as Paris, Wilna, Lemberg, Warsaw, Vienna, Salzburg, Brussels and Amsterdam. Without intending to deny his Jewish origins, Roth considered his relationship to Catholicism very important. In the final years of his life, he may even have converted. Michael Hoffman states in the preface to the collection of essays The White Cities that Roth was said to have had 2 funerals, one Jewish, one Catholic. Roth's last years were difficult. He moved from hotel to hotel, drinking heavily, and becoming increasingly anxious about money and the future. Despite suffering from chronic alcoholism, he remained prolific until his premature death in Paris in 1939. His novella The Legend of the Holy Drinker chronicles the attempts made by an alcoholic vagrant to regain his dignity and honor a debt. Roth's final collapse was precipitated by hearing the news that the playwright Ernst Toller had hanged himself in New York. Roth is interred in the Cimetière de Thérèse, south of Paris. Works: The Spider's Web, Hotel Savoy, The Rebellion, April, The Story of a Love Affair, The Blind Mirror, The Wandering Jews, The Flight Without End, Zipper and His Father, Right and Left, The Silent Prophet, Job, Radetzky March, The Antichrist, Taharabas, The Bust of the Emperor, Confession of a Murderer, Die Hand Tage, Weights and Measures, The Emperor's Tomb, The Legend of the Holy Drinker, The String of Pearls 1939, The Leviathan, What I Saw, Reports from Berlin 1920 to 1933, trans. By Michael Hoffman, New York, W.W. Norton and Amp Company in London, Granta Books. The Collected Stories of Joseph Roth, trans. By Michael Hoffman, New York, W.W. Norton and Amp Company. The White Cities, Reports from France, 1925-39, trans. By Michael Hoffman, London, Granta Books, issued in the United States as Report from a Parisian Paradise, Essays from France, 1925-1939, New York, W.W. Norton and Amp Company. Joseph Roth, A Life in Letters, trans. And edited by Michael Hoffman, New York, W.W. Norton and Amp Company. The Hoteliers, trans. And edited by Michael Hoffman, New York, New Directions.